Hello, my name is Kay Aubrey Shemaine, and I'm the director of Photonic Therapy Institute, your host for this Light Therapy for Animals Summit. My guest this session is Jost from Care for the Horses Equine Rescue in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Anne and I became good friends many years ago through her equine rescue efforts. Her horses and the horses that she's helped others to foster have been taking part in our classes and helping to teach my students how to use light therapy. And through that process, Anne started using light therapy and teaching her volunteers how to use light therapy for the horses in their program. She's here today to share a number of their stories and how light has really benefited Care for the Horses. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Get us started with a little bit of information about Care for the Horses and where that came from and how you started that.
Well, I was out trail riding one day and came across 12 horses that I noticed were like skin and bones. So my girlfriend and I stopped by and knocked on the owner's door at 6:30 in the morning and said, "What's going on with these animals?" And we were told that she could not afford to feed them. Hay at that time was $18 a bale. So we wanted to work with the owner and we raised money, and that is how Care for the Horses started. And we named it Care for the Horses because that's what we had planned to do. The owner was never able to properly care for them, and they eventually got turned over to our newly formed rescue program. That was in 2002. And since that time, we have been trying to help owners maintain keeping their horses by offering assistance to feed and veterinary care for them, with a small payback at the end when they can afford to do so. And that is our main goal because we all love our horses. But, there are times when circumstances are beyond the owner's control. They cannot continue to care for them, and they will relinquish them to the rescue program for taking care of them and eventually finding new homes.
That's so wonderful and so needed. So we have a number of different cases here. Let me swing by here. That's Anne there on the right. One of the first cases that I ever knew about that you and I, collaborated on was this horse, Applejack. Tell us a little bit about his story.
Well, I was having a fundraiser one day trying to find homes for horses at our facility, and we received a call. There was a horse a few miles up the road that needed some help, and that was Applejack there on the left. So during the middle of our fundraising, we went up and picked him up and got him in the trailer, brought him back, and he wouldn't get out the trailer. So eventually he came out by eating an apple, and that's how he got his name Applejack. But he had survived on literally eating trash. I mean, we're talking plastic bags, tin cans, towels, and his manure was, we were very scared of him colicking because that's all we could find in his manure. He literally had not eaten horse feed for a very long time. So we had to deal with ulcers. We had to deal with digestive. His muscles had all atrophied. So we did a lot of red lighting on him, trying to get his energy points up to colic points, and just trying to maintain him to keep him alive because we weren't sure he would be able to pull through. And thankfully he did.
I remember this was one of the first times that one of the better known vets in your area had come across what we were doing with light and using activated probiotics and so on. And he was really kind of a miracle baby. None of us expected him to walk away because he was just a walking skeleton. How long after? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
I'm going to say, we have this wonderful picture of him on the right. How far apart are those two photos?
About 18 months. We would not let him leave our facility until we realized he was stable enough to do so. And this young lady here adopted him and came and visited him at the facility, learned to care for him properly, learned how to do the red light, because it was a long, slow process. His stomach had to learn how to take food again, how to redigest everything. He had to get dental work. But I think this is where we introduced the vet to a lot of red light, and she really seemed to have a lot of faith in what we were doing, because we deal with a number of vets and not everybody is aware of what red light can do.
Sure, sure. Did you have a specific regimen with Applejack?
We did the 9 energy points. We did a lot of the digestive points, and we would do that every day. And of course, our volunteers and the lady who adopted him all had to learn that and continue that once he was adopted. But like I say, it was an 18-month recovery process.
Well, that's actually pretty good for a horse that was a body score of like 1 or 2. It was terrible.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
He's one of our miracles.
So let's look at, one of the days that we were out there teaching a class, we had another case come up just while it always seems to happen luckily this time while we were there. This was a little sweetheart named Chico. Tell us about Chico.
Chico at this point was probably about 18 years old. He's one of our mascots that we keep. His owner was going through a difficult situation and wanted to give him to the program to make sure that he would always be taken care of and not taken to an auction or abused. So Chico came to us, and we still have him in our program today. And this has been probably 15 years now. And on this particular day, it was very hot and he colicked. And I'm so glad that you and Karen were there and were able to help, because at that time, we didn't have the big red lights. And you were helping us get through that colic. And he did pull through.
Yeah, I can remember we had a couple of other people with us that day, and they were a little flabbergasted when Karen just said, "Oh, I got to go take care of this other horse. He's got a problem. I can tell he has a problem. He's colicking. He was rolling. He was biting." And you could tell she didn't have to put a halter on him or anything. He was just, "Come over here, lady, and work on me." And he was pooping within minutes. He was doing well.
He was very responsive, and you can left side of his neck on the picture to the left. The vet had already been there previously, sometime before that, a few days doing the colics. This was a continued. And so after the red light, he did not colic again. So that was a lot cheaper and easier than having a vet, because we could do it ourselves then.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent. But that machine that Karen's using there, the BioPack, those aren't sold anymore. But that was really one of the very first LED red and infrared light therapy tools on the market, dating back to the late 80s, early 90s. And that's what made a believer out of me and my partner Karen, and then eventually you.
Right, and you can tell she's got the pack on, and it's a little more cumbersome. The torches are so much easier and portable to always have with you, and you can still do the two different points at a time.
That's okay. It worked. All right. So then, it seems like a couple of times you've had to take on some cases that were really, really horrific. These were babies. Tell me about these two.
These two were abandoned in the desert. They're actually called Arabian foals. That just, the one couldn't stand up. We literally had to lift it up. This is actually the horse on the left standing in the trailer. That's now down on the ground. He went down here really fast. It was a long, hot ride for him to get down to 5 hours to us. He had infections in his knee. He had just so much going wrong with him. We really didn't even know what it all was at first until we had, spent quite a few weeks evaluating. They had equine herpes, they had ulcers. The one on the laying down the ground, he had a lot of ulcers and other issues. So we just had to keep evaluating. I think you were here a number of times helping us try to sort it all out, because they were dehydrated, starved, infections, herpes. It was just a lot.
Luckily, there were people on both ends that really stepped up. People up in the Phoenix area, and people down here that made sure that these babies made it to you.
Correct. It was a really combined effort. Thank goodness. And then of course we had to make sure we had all the full every milk for them to have required, like every 2 hours. You would have to lift the one up to feed it. It was a lot of work, but well worth it to see them come around.
So this was the one that was on the ground that had the punctured knee. You can see quite an infection there. What was the process with him?
Well, he had quite an infection when he was down the ground. We were not sure that he would pull through. So his infection in his knee actually went to the whole body. So we did a lot of red light treatment on that wound, trying to help the infection come out. Did a lot of points on its body to help energize him, to get him up. And, the picture on the right is maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and he was finally able to get up. We were able to take a bandage off. The knee had come down and just had to be maintained at that point. But, it was pretty intense doing therapy on him, trying to get that infection out of his whole body.
Yeah, I seem to remember you were like packing it with clay to help draw. And yeah, he was scary. It was touch and go with him.
It really was. And they had worms too. I mean, and sand, just from the little bit that they were out there for those, I don't know if they were out there a week or two, but in the intense heat, the dehydration, everything just was not helping them at this point.
And there's not exactly a lot of forage or decent food in the desert in Arizona. So, but it worked out. Here's 2 months later, both foals. Just amazing.
Yeah, 2 months later.
And where did they end up?
They are actually located here in the Hereford area. They got adopted by some of the volunteers that were working and handling with them, and they just fell in love with them. And look at them there. They are just energized, athletic. You would never know that they were so close to death. It's just amazing. And these people do continue to do some of the red light with them as things come up that they need to address, because they've learned to like the light and have seen what it can do.
I love seeing pictures like that. So
beautiful.
Our next horse is Zoro. And, from these pictures, you might not see a huge difference right off the top, but he was pretty unhappy when you first started, from what you were telling me.
Yes, if you look at the picture on the left, you'll notice his head is quite tense. And actually, all his muscles never got relaxed. He was a thoroughbred off the racetrack, and he had severe ulcers, arthritis in his right hock. He was very sore through his neck and poll. He had a lot of TMJ issues because he never had dental work. So he wasn't overly handleable. So he came to us, and we had volunteers work with him. We had, at that time, a caretaker living on premise, and she went out diligently once she learned how to do the red light. And she took her chart out there and would go through it every day without fail. I don't care if it was raining or snowing, she was out there doing that. And her goal was to make him relax, the ulcers go away. We really didn't know if we would ever find a home for him that could handle him and his arthritis that wasn't going away, help keep him be ulcer free. But we have found one, and he has been there for a couple of years, and that's the picture on the right. You can just see how soft his eyes are there. There's no signs of ulcers for 18 months. It's just amazing.
Yeah, he's in a pretty good spot now. It's a pretty good spot. He's a pretty happy boy.
He is, but if we didn't continue with the TMJ release and the hyoid release and doing the ulcer points and the red light on his arthritic hock, and I don't know that he would have ever come around. He just would have been in pain all the time. And now he's not.
Yeah, and rescue thoroughbreds off the track in pain, that's a recipe for somebody getting hurt and the horse getting euthanized.
It really is. It really is. But, he's got a wonderful life now.
Well, it seems like Care for the Horses seems to attract babies, and babies in pairs. This was another case. Here, the woman on the left with the foal in the stall, that's another one of our certified light therapists and instructors, Tammy Blake. She's up in the Phoenix area. And I remember her calling me in tears going, okay, I got to go work on this baby. Where is it? And So tell me about this. What happened with these two?
Well, the little guy on the left was a Salt River foal. They're wild horses that are up on the river up towards Phoenix. And because Care for the Horses is so well known throughout the state, someone from Phoenix contacted us down in Sierra Vista, hoping that we could help make a connection. They needed to go out and find this foal. Someone had seen him and took a picture, and then hike back to where they had cell phone service. Then we had to get a rescue party out there to find him. So we were contacted. Well, we're 5 hours away, so we made phone calls and got a team together up there, working with another rescue that the original people didn't know about. And so we were able to get them to go out, and they found this foal. They put him in the back seat of the car and drove them to their rescue to take care of them. And again, they didn't think he would make it either, because, you know, he was not very old. And so Candy there is doing a red light. She got the call to go out there and work with him. And there he is on the right. He's looking up and chipper and full of energy. And fortunately, they had another rescue foal that was about the same age. I don't know his background, but they became very good buddies.
Well, and for me, what's astonishing about that story in this picture is this is a wild horse. This is a wild foal.
It is.
And look how it's just absolutely letting Tammy work on it. She told me that it nuzzled on her and just recognized that she was trying to help. And that's pretty astonishing for a wild horse that quickly. So that was pretty wonderful.
Very much so. And the fact that he was so young, I don't know what happened to his mama, but, you know, to put him in the backseat of a car, he had to be pretty weak to allow that to happen.
Definitely.
And then, of course, he didn't have a mama. So the rescue up in Phoenix got him a giant teddy bear that he could cuddle up to. And then he kind of attached himself to the people that were coming and helping him.
That's good. I wish I had a picture of him with the teddy bear. That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. But there he is with another playmate, and they grew up together. And I don't know if they got adopted together, but it's just amazing how he went from, you know, being so weak and on death's bed to being all healthy again.
There was another one that you took on there at Care for the Horses. This was Socks.
Yes, Socks is actually a starvation case. He had a body score of about 2, and you really can't tell by the pictures, but he had gone a long time without eating, and while he was in Mama's womb, she was also starved. So he had a lot of muscle atrophy. He really couldn't get up. This is a picture of him on the left after he got up. But sometimes it would take hours to get him up. His muscles were so weak. So we had a volunteer that came out and did red light therapy 2 times a day, sometimes 3. And he would put the light on his hips, different energy points where we thought he needed the help. And it was, he was very responsive to some, but some was over, he couldn't take it. So that's why the volunteer would come back repeatedly, do what he needed to do, get some response, give the horse time to, you know, work through it, and then just continue that process. And that probably went on for 4 to 5 months. And then over time, I would say the picture on the right would have to be at least 6 months afterwards when he developed and looks very healthy there.
He went on to be a riding horse.
He did. And, you know, he was a stud when we got him also. So he was never going to be very big. So he turned out to be an awesome child's horse. And the lady that adopted him knew how to train horses. And eventually, this is what he was doing, taking the kids out for trail rides, nice and easy, healthy. He no longer has any lameness, any issues. He came around completely. But like I say, our volunteer did intense.
And what would you say a good, quiet, sound, trained kid's horse is worth? I mean, that's just
I would say priceless because they're taking care of your baby, but that's just it. I never thought being a stallion that he would ever come around to that. But all the attention that he got, the training that she did, the red light to help him get his muscles, and like he had a poor attitude, he didn't want to live. He did not want to get up. So the diligence shown by the volunteer with doing the red light therapy and his continuation of being there. I mean, thank goodness he didn't live very far away because it was multiple trips per day.
Wow. So we have a last story, and this is one that I just happened to be there when we first discovered what was going on. This is Lena, and she'd been brought in. She was obviously a gorgeous mare, and we noticed as we were doing a body evaluation on her that her hindquarters were atrophied. When you stood her right next to each other, it's harder to see in this picture because of where the light is. But there's a huge divot here in her hindquarters. Tell us about what you guys went through with Lena.
Well, Lena was a horse that was used hard and then locked away in a tiny stall for months and months. So after having so much use and then getting locked up, her muscle just disappeared. And they were hard as rocks. So they were very painful to her. And she would walk all tucked up in the back. And you can see in the picture on the right, her back doesn't lay nicely. She had her feet all tucked underneath her all the time because it was so difficult to walk. And you can see the stress line on her rib cage because it hurt. It hurt all the time. So in addition to this, she also had ulcers. And she also had TMJ. She needed dental work severely. Her feet had not been done for ages. So we had to get her in. And again, Karen and Kay happened to be there and could do the evaluation. And we came up with a plan for red lighting her. And we would get her to a certain point and think, okay, she's good. But if we didn't keep up with the red lights, a couple times a week, she would go back. So we had to start the intense light again. So once she started to keep maintaining it with the horse, and we did train, eventually the people that adopted her continued with the red light therapy, which was awesome that we could continue to improve and get her muscles taken care of. That was the biggest thing. The dental we could address, the feet we could address, but all the muscles and the damage, it just took forever to get those muscles all back to normal.
Yeah, her sacrum was out of balance. You can see here in this picture, if you just look at how out of balance her top line is, she's much higher on the right side. And yeah, so that she needed so much physical therapy. And she wasn't in the two body score. She wasn't starved to death the way many horses are when they come in, but she was in so much pain and she had so much potential. And I love showing this last couple of pictures because this is what it's all about. This is Lena today. And that just speaks for itself. What a stunner. Looking back, I know
yes, and she turned out to be a really nice.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I spoke over you. Go ahead.
Well, I said the young lady there that adopted her continued with her physical therapy, her red lighting, and getting her to the point where she looks on the right like she does today. I mean, look at the muscles, the relaxation. You can just see how her muscles are relaxed and just beautiful. I mean, this is what every horse should look like.
Exactly. So looking back on cases like this, and I know you've had many, many more that I was never involved in, and you've had them on your facility while you had it, you have them in foster homes. If you had to ballpark how much money, veterinary care money, you saved by having red light therapy available on site, where would you estimate that to be?
Oh gosh, I can't even give an estimate on that because ulcer medication can run between $600 and $800 a month. Many of these horses would need 2 to 3 months to get over. So you're already talking $2,400 there, right there for medication that you really don't. When you get the medication, it presents other problems in the horse's system. So doing the red light, we were able to save that. And we had over 300 horses, and I would say most of them had emotional stress, physical stress, starvation, sand. They all pretty much came in with ulcers. Also, the dental work was always the key. So we could able to release the tension in their jaws, so in the TMJ area, so that they could relax and eat rather than having to be taking bute or some other kind of pain medication.
Which just added the ulcers, right.
Right. So it was a vicious cycle. And we finally would get the vet to come out. We would evaluate the horse for a week, kind of decide what we physically saw, what we were able to kind of diagram and come up with the horse, what we felt was the issues that needed to be addressed. The vet would come out, confirm, make sure that we were on the right track. But then we got to the point that she would say, do the red light. And now that's a lot of what she says to us is do the red light. She has seen it work. And, we just don't give meds if we don't have to. So between, boy, I couldn't put a number on it, Kay. I would have to say hundreds of thousands with 300 horses.
I believe it. Yeah, we estimated once in 1 year here at the ranch, when we had a number of rehab horses in, I sat down with my friend, the veterinarian, and he and I were partners in a lot of this. And he estimated that if I'd had to pay him for many of the services that we were able to bypass because we were able to take care of them ourselves, it would have been $30,000 to $40,000 that year in veterinary care for the horses that we had in rehab. So just the investment in time and red lights are so affordable now. It's just for me, it's a no-brainer. And I know that
it is. And
go ahead.
Continue.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I also get calls from the vet when they can't get up for emergency calls and it's ulcer or like colic. They will call me to go out with my lights and evaluate and do some red light therapy on them and make horses don't have to have a vet call, which is nice. So we can help the owners that way too.
Well, I know that you've been winding down the care for the horses facility. You now are using foster homes. We're one of the foster homes. We have one of your very, very late 30s old mares that some of our students have seen in our videos, Old Liberty. But Care for the Horses is still accepting donations to help other equine rescues and in emergency situations. Is that still available?
Yes, it is. We still are taking donations for that because we will probably still be operating at least another 2 years, as we have 4 horses that are in permanent foster homes, such as yours, that we need to continue to maintain and provide, care, feed, different things that come up with the horses. They're mainly all older horses. So we will continue to do that. And in the interim, what we're doing is when these hurricanes and fires go through around the U.S., we will send donations to help purchase hay, to help veterinarians provide medical care to horses that need burned or whatever's going on with them, the flooding situations. So we're helping out on a larger scale with many more horses, but not locally doing rescue.
Well, good. We'll make sure there's a link next to this presentation. So if people feel moved to want to help with that, they'll be able to find it.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. I know you're semi-retired, and so you're coming out and spending a couple of hours with me is very generous. Thank you so much, Ann.
Well, thank you. I always enjoy talking about the horses and what we can do to help them. So appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.